Without a doubt, the most competitive sector of the modern hi-fi market is music streamers or streaming DACs below about $3,000. And I would say that sector of the market, the competition is brutally fierce. So that only leaves one question. Did Cyrus do enough with their new flagship 40ST music streaming DAC? In celebration of 40 years of business, Cyrus has released a brand new flagship range of hi-fi products, the 40 series. One of them is the 40ST, a music streaming DAC. And I think it looks really lovely. I think it looks really modern. And I actually think it's the Cyrus product that needed this 40 series modernization the most for it to meet modern audiophile expectations for a product like this. Because like I said at the start of the video, the competition in this sector is brutally fierce and fancy screens have become the norm. So fancy screens are what audiophiles expect these days. Whether we need them or not is the topic for another video. But given its asking price of £2,995, my expectations are extremely high. And I think what Cyrus has done here with the 40ST's design is great. It gets the overall 40 aesthetic, which means a fully redesigned aluminium casework that's quite industrial, but also stand out. And it grows on you. But it's the front profile that I think will win over more hearts, because the full glass front is really quite stand out, and the quality of the screen is very good. Much better than I have seen from some other competitor products, but not quite to the level of others. But it certainly delivers on this modern audiophile expectation. However, some might have the expectation for a touch screen, and this is not a touch screen device. Instead, it has touch sensitive buttons on the left. So it's a touch to control device, which I think is an acceptable compromise. And Cyrus told me they have full control over how the screen displays information, and they have chosen to go big and clear with the text and smaller with the album art, which is an interesting choice. And I don't mind the larger text, as you can read the main information sat a distance away. But I couldn't read any of the smaller text, and certainly not the volume indicator in the top right hand corner if you're using the 40ST as a streaming DAC and preamplifier, because you can. The big volume wheel kind of gives that away, and it's a nice implementation of a rotary control with a nice stiff clicky motion. And Cyrus told me this is a fully custom designed volume control, the same as what's used in the 40 amp. What I think really sets off this overall design is when you have a setup like what I have back here, with multiple 40 products side by side, or better still, when you stack them. For some reason, when you stack them, they just look more serious. They look more they look more serious hi-fi product. Maybe that's just me being weird. One thing that's really cool is that you have independent brightness controls for the screen and for the volume ring and the buttons on the left. So you can set both differently. And that I found really useful because I like the screens brighter and the ring and the buttons dimmer in brightness. And there is the exact same brightness controls on all the 40 products, so you can set them all exactly the same and the brightnesses match. That is, that definitely helps my OCD. And it also means the 40ST has the same auto hide feature as all the 40 series products. So the screen and ring can all go away when you want the least distraction, but it comes back on when you approach the unit, with the sensor for this and the remote control being built into the front volume wheel. The rear of the 40ST looks very similar to the rear of the 40 CD, which makes more sense to me now. So it's still a single-ended analog output device only for when you're using the internal DAC. And the inclusion of a balanced analog output, I know some audiophiles would prefer, including me. Different to the 40 CD, there are 2 additional digital inputs for extending the use of the internal DAC to other products. And then most interestingly is the funny looking square that is the Wi-Fi antenna. So that design seems simple, but it means Cyrus has completely done away with the need for using any aerials sticking out of the back. And I really dislike any aerials sticking out of the back of hi-fi products. It's just a personal bugbear of mine. So massive kudos to them for that. I do really appreciate it. However, one expectation that might not be met, the USB that you can see on the rear, that is only for playing music files, maybe from a USB drive or some type of hard drive. It's not a digital output for feeding a digital signal to a DAC. And that is a shame. Some audiophiles will miss that. However, you can send a digital signal out to an external DAC, either via the optical or the SPDIF digital outputs. So it's still great, and I'm still happy that we can use an external DAC here if we want to or choose to. The DAC in the 40ST is the same as in all the 40 series products, and it's using the latest ESS Sabre 9039 Q2M DAC chip, which on paper is not that exciting given what the competition is doing. But the chip alone is not the full picture for the sound. Other things matter too, and my 40 PSU review proved this to me unequivocally, and maybe you'll want to check out that review after this one. For streaming, the 40ST uses BluOS, so that means widespread support for many streaming services like Tidal, Spotify, Qobuz, Amazon, Deezer, internet radio, and many, many more. But to the best of my knowledge, there is not Apple Music support natively, but there is AirPlay 2 support. The 40ST is room ready and will play MQA files if that's still important to you. I'm a Tidal user, and it was easy to get into my music collection or go navigating around what's new. BluOS in general is a good app to use, not just to select music to play, but to also build a play queue of randomly chosen tracks. And I did all of this from my phone in a very easy manner, which is great. So I don't see many having too many complaints here, with one exception. If you're used to BluOS in an NAD, for example, the Cyrus implementation will feel very scaled down for what it allows you to do or for what features it has or offers you. Because for a modern streaming DAC, the 40ST feels very, very bare bones. And I think that is partly by design to make it feel more like a CD player, so simple to use. But compared to a lot of other modern streaming products, again, the competition is fierce. There's no tone controls, there's no DSP or room correction like Dirac Live. There's no bass management. There's no, frills, bells and whistles. This is a very, very scaled down product in terms of modern streaming features. But there are different DAC filter modes with lots to choose between. But these are more related to the ESS Sabre DAC chip, and the selection of the filter has to be made in the 40ST menu. You can't change any of the Cyrus settings within the BluOS app. So there is a little bit of a disconnect between the hardware and the software here, which is totally fine really, because changing settings and changing DAC filter modes, it's probably something you're not going to do much past your initial setup and your initial choice, right? This is really just about listening to music, but it does feel a little bit disjointed, or it doesn't feel quite as intuitive to use as other modern streamers where you can do absolutely everything from within the app. And of course, there are a number of those available. This competition, right, is so fierce. I am more than fine with a streaming product like this being very light on features if it hits really big on sound quality. So the Cyrus needs to hit big on sound quality because, of course, products from the likes of Wim, Ever Solo and the new Bluesound products are offering the same or maybe arguably better music library navigation control, like the everyday use case. Plus they're offering a hell of a lot more features for aggressively less money. So, did the Cyrus ST40 deliver the audio magic?
To be where you are, to be where you
I think we can likely all agree that all modern digital music streaming products deliver all of the basics of very good sound. They all deliver good bass detail, good vocal detail, good treble detail, good timing, good soundstage. They deliver all of the music. All modern digital streaming products do that, even the really affordable ones, which is fantastic. But I think the better digital streaming products do all of that with a much greater sense of like feeling. The music they present is bigger, it's more substantial. I call it tangible, like you can reach out and touch it, much bigger in scale, much just bigger in general. So music becomes less about something that you listen to and more about something that you experience. That's what the better products do. But the very best products, digital streaming products, do all of that to the absolute nth degree, but with a really nice, graceful sense of ease. So like the digital hardness or the digital tension is gone. And we start to get what some people would say is more analog-like sound. I know that's quite a controversial thing to say, but that's been my experience, what the best digital streaming products can do. So small rants out of the way, the 40ST as a streaming DAC delivers music with a good portion of this, such as an excellent soundstage with a very good sense of space and depth where the sound can be perceived from beyond the speakers or coming out into the room. And interestingly, in outright terms, I feel like the sound stage expansion or overall space felt bigger from the 40ST than it did from the 40CD. The 40CD had more of like a set frame type of size. You don't really get that from the 40ST. So from a soundstage space point of view, the 40ST is very good. What was interesting to me is the 40CD and the 40ST share the same DAC, and yet they don't sound the same. And I really like the sound of the 40CD, and I have a whole video review for my thoughts on that you might want to check out. And the 40ST also delivers music with a good sense of size, scale, with good bass authority, and it has a good energy and drive and rhythm about its music delivery, all of which I of course liked. And I also liked its very detailed sound. There seemed to be a very noticeable uptick in like small detail resolution or maybe like leading edges of music, which means the sound is just a bit more cutting, again, compared to the 40CD that I spent a lot of time with. And it's maybe a little bit more in line with what I'm used to. And the vocals were coming through nice. And like the 40ST just delivers good sound in all areas. You get good bass, good sound, very good soundstage, but good bass, good timing, good rhythm, good everything. It's like a good all-rounder. And you can hear straight away that it's a clear step up from a device like a Wim Ultra, even feeding a digital signal into the Cyrus 40 amp that has the exact same DAC as the 40ST. The sound from the 40ST as a streaming DAC, so feeding analog into the 40 amp, sounds more solid, it sounds more full, it sounds more sure-footed and less vague compared to the Wim, factoring in the huge difference in price here. So the 40ST does get a lot right here, and like I said, it's a good all-rounder, difficult to fault really, but not, because it doesn't deliver, in every single area like I mentioned shortly ago. It has what I class as like digital tension or just some kind of edge going on with its sound. And that stands out to me because I'm like a pretty extreme audiophile in like digital kind of terms, right? I've spent a lot of time with really high-end, very, very expensive digital products. So like I am holding the Cyrus like to that kind of level, if that makes sense, having that huge expectation, which possibly is a little unfair, but given its price, I think it's right to mention this. I also think a big part of me noticing this is because I'd spent a big chunk of time listening to the 40CD, and I expected the 40ST and 40CD to sound pretty much the same, but they don't. The 40CD just sounded the better to me of the two. I liked its more full tone and more relaxed, very digital tensions-free sound. But that is me comparing CD to streaming, which of course is me being unfair, but it's still all digital. It still might be your same money that you're spending, so it's important to be honest. So I like the 40ST. I really like the look, I like the screen, I like the build. BluOS is a nice app to use and it sounds good in all areas, but it's very difficult for me to recommend it outright as a standalone music streaming DAC because of the price and because of the competition. The competition is so fierce, it makes it difficult for someone like me to outright recommend this product based on what it's doing for the price. But don't write it off just yet, because, and that's not me saying it's a bad product, it's just me being brutally honest. But don't, like I said, don't write it off just yet, because I have a really interesting comparison for you. Because the 40ST still makes a lot of obvious sense as part of a full Cyrus 40 HiFi system. And used with the 40 amp, the price of that combination comes in at just under £7,000 UK pounds, which is a big chunk of money. And I happen to have here at the same time the NAD M66 and M23. A hi-fi system pairing that costs just shy of £8,000. So how do the systems compare? The Cyrus, again, no surprise really, does not come close, not even remotely close to the NAD for features. The NAD offers, features and functions and flexibility out of the wazoo compared to the Cyrus. No surprise there. I think some audiophiles would prefer to only need half the space for the Cyrus setup compared to the NAD, because the NAD is significantly larger, or maybe a quarter of the space if you stacked the Cyrus. For the visuals, and this is the big surprise to me, I much prefer the look and the visuals of the Cyrus compared to the NAD. That black glass front with a really nice screen, it does look really nice in the flesh and is really modern. And I think it's so nice and so modern, it's making the NAD pairing look a little old-fashioned. And I am the most surprised at myself for saying that, and some of you might shout at me in strong disagreement, which is absolutely fine. But like Cyrus have really moved things on, this 40 series does look really nice. But what about sound quality? The NAD offers a lot of sound tailoring options, tone controls, bass management, but the biggest one is Direct Live. And I am an expert with Direct Live. So of course I could manipulate the sound of the system in this room very much, not infinitely, but to a very large degree. So of course that wouldn't be fair for a listening test comparison. So I use both products or both systems kind of straight out of the box, all using the same cables, no tone controls, no DSP, no nothing, straight out of the box, just to compare what their raw sounds would be like. So maybe it was fair or unfair to one or the other, but it's as fair as a test as I could make it. The NAD pairing is excellent digital with excellent amplification. So it ticks a lot of the important digital sound boxes I mentioned before. It sounds ultra clean, ultra clear. The timing of the music is exceptional. The M23 power amplifier can drive the SVS Titans seemingly with a little more ease at very loud volumes compared to the Cyrus 40 amp. And the NAD doesn't put a foot wrong in the music delivery. It has a little bit of a laid back character with a nice sense of ease about it. I like all of this. So those are its big strengths, but also its weaker points. Because the music from the NAD pairing is so organised and so squeaky clean, it is a more analytical and more dry musical presentation compared to the Cyrus. So like everything's so perfectly organised, delivered, and that's fantastic for some music like electronic music, because everything's lovely and spaced out and perfectly positioned, and it can be quite a euphonic way to listen to electronic music. But for vocals and general warmth and tonality, I find the NAD pairing was more like squeaky clean, lean, and maybe a bit undernourished for tonality and for like the fullness and pleasing kind of warmth that we can get from vocals and other instruments. So the big strength of the NAD pairing is this really precise, clean, clear, ultra organized sound, but it doesn't, or its strengths are not tonality, fullness and warmth. And that is where the Cyrus pairing strengths really lie. So it sounds warmer, more pleasing, more nourished in the vocals. Everything's like more full-bodied and warm and pleasing to listen to. So we're into like a sound quality or sound preference here, not necessarily a quality, one being better than the other. I do think for bass, the NAD pairing was able to control the SVS Titans a little better at very loud volumes. But again, the bass is a little bit more mechanical, it's a little bit more analytical, whereas the Cyrus, up until the point where you get to very loud, its bass is a bit more full and a bit more fleshed out. So if I could show you the differences in the sound, for me the NAD sounds more like this in music, the Cyrus sounds a little bit more like this for the whole music delivery. So what we've got here is a difference and a preference. You might prefer one or the other, more than one being infinitely better than the other. So the Cyrus, considering it's a streamer and an integrated amplifier, is hanging with the more expensive pre and power amplifier setup. So there's a hell of a lot that you can take away from that comparison. It's a very telling comparison. So in summary then, the big question of, did Cyrus do enough with the 40ST in 2024 when the competition is as fierce as it is? That is a very tough question to answer because it depends on how you look at it. I think the new 40 series and definitely the 40ST music streamer looks great. I think it looks really nice. I think if you went into a hi-fi shop now, you would pick it out as one of the better looking products in the category rather than it being more of a hi-fi system that your granddad would buy. And I know that sounds very insulting. I really don't mean it to insult anybody or offend anyone. It's just like a general term, for the phrase of the look. And I think it's me being honest here, the modernization of the 40 products is really important because the competition for streaming DACs is fierce, and brands like Wim and Ever Solo are raising the expectations of what products like this music streamers need to do and need to offer. And the Cyrus, it doesn't fulfill those expectations from a features point of view. It doesn't even get remotely close. But that could be the reason why you want it, because it's more simple, because it's more like a CD player. You could listen to tracks and, change the tracks with the remote control. It feels more simplified like that. And that might be exactly what you want, because there definitely is a focus on sound quality here. The 40ST is not perfect, but you can tell there's been a push for sound quality because it's holding its own with a more expensive NAD in its own right. So that's quite a telling thing. So I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you found it useful and helpful. If you did, please hit the thumbs up button, and there are the reviews for all the other Cyrus products shown in this review, and hundreds more in the channel. So subscribe to see more videos like this.